So this is the second part of Chapter 11. This is Section 11B. So I'll let you think about this opening question about as you exercise, your breathing and heart rate increase, your skin may flush and you may sweat, and if you continue to exercise, you may feel thirsty, and maybe think about how is feeling thirsty during exercise an example of a negative feedback loop. We're going to discuss the human digestive system, and the digestive system is a long tube with specialized organs. So your gut is called the alimentary canal, and at each stop along the alimentary canal, specific steps in the processing of food occur. So part of what you'll want to kind of keep track of is from the moment you put food in your mouth to the moment that the undigested materials are released from your body, can you basically discuss the pathway that the food and then undigested food actually take? So that's a review question. So we start with the mouth. It's also called the oral cavity, and that is the site of ingestion. And then at the pharynx, which is kind of in the back of the throat, the epiglottis, which is kind of a flap-like structure, moves to cover the entrance to the trachea, directing food down the esophagus. So the epiglottis, when we swallow, will cover the trachea so that we don't choke. Food then moves from the esophagus to the stomach, and that takes place via these muscle contractions called peristalsis. And then cells lining the stomach secrete gastric juice containing enzymes such as pepsin that can help digest food, in this case proteins. So from there, chemical digestion is, as I mentioned, it started in the stomach and it's completed within the small intestine. In fact, most of chemical digestion occurs in the small intestine. And so just looking at kind of this area here, so here's the stomach, right? And then it moves into the small intestine, and this is the small intestine. And then after you get done with the small intestine, then it moves into the large intestine, and then is finally released. So within the colon, which is the main portion of the large intestine, water is absorbed. And then the remaining waste is formed into feces and it's stored in the rectum. So from the rectum, there are two sphincter muscles. One is voluntary, one is not, that operates the opening, which is known as the anus. And when the voluntary sphincter muscle is relaxed, the feces are expelled. So at that point, the undigested material is expelled. Now, there are also a series of what's called accessory organs that are very important in your digestive system. Now, they are not directly in the alimentary canal, but they secrete specific digestive enzymes that are released into the alimentary canal via ducts. And examples of accessory organs include salivary glands, which you can see here, that help with saliva, the liver, so the liver is here, the gallbladder is right here, and the pancreas. So here's the pancreas here. And these all secrete digestive chemicals, digestive enzymes that help with digestion. So just a little bit of discussion about food. Remember, our whole intention with food is to provide chemical potential energy that can be broken down to make ATP, right, via cellular respiration. But of course, we also love food, right? So try to remember all the food that you've eaten over the past 24 hours and think about why did you choose the foods that you ate. And then think about, if you were eating those foods, like write down sort of the pathway through your digestive system, starting with the mouth, right? And then going from there all the way to the anus. Now, when it comes to digestion, food processing occurs via 4 stages. The first is ingestion. Okay, that's actually eating. You ingest food, right? The second is digestion, and digestion is both the mechanical and the chemical breakdown of the food that you're eating. And then the next part is the absorption of nutrients. So that's primarily by cells lining the small intestine. Okay, so once food has been digested into smaller chemicals, they can be absorbed in the small intestine, where then they can enter the bloodstream. And then those nutrients can go every place in the body. And then what's left is eliminated. Those materials that are not absorbed, they're not, helpful with nutrition, are eliminated. So why do you think you actually chew food before you swallow it? Well, that's part of mechanical digestion. So after ingestion, taking the food in, your digestion begins. And it actually begins right in the mouth with mechanical digestion as you chew, and it's a physical process that breaks down food into smaller pieces. And then there's also chemical digestion. So chemical digestion is the use of enzymes to perform hydrolysis, if you remember way back to our chemistry unit, where bonds are broken with the addition of water that then, help to break down, for example, proteins into amino acids or starch into glucose molecules. So here's this drawing is showing a protein, right, which is a polymer. And with the help of water and enzymes, you can have this hydrolysis reaction where these monomers, in this case, because it's a protein, their amino acids are released. And that's what you see here. So after digestion, food molecules are absorbed and waste is eliminated. So the absorption, once everything is broken down, the absorption is the uptake of these small nutrient molecules, primarily by cells that line the folds in the small intestine. So that's what you can see here are these folds in the small intestine. And you can see that there are blood vessels and lymph that are in these folds. And basically what happens is the nutrients are transferred to the blood, and then whatever is left over is eliminated. So elimination is the last step. It is the disposal of undigested matter from the body. So, you've probably heard about, like certain materials like cellulose, for example, in plants, we cannot digest. And those are eliminated from our body. But they're very, very important, right? That's part of fiber, and fiber is very, very important for your gut health. So here's a question for you. Your friend raves about a new 0-calorie energy drink. And since you're taking biology, you wonder whether that type of energy drink really contains energy. So here's the question. Is it possible to get energy to fuel your body from a 0-calorie energy drink? And so, you can think about that for a couple seconds. But you probably know that an quote energy drink, if it doesn't have any sugar in it, if it's truly 0 calories, it is not going to provide any energy for you that could be broken down with the production of ATP. If it's 0 calorie, it's probably a whole lot of caffeine, and so it's not actually giving you fuel. It's just kind of, doing what caffeine does, making you more alert, and in some cases, too much caffeine can actually be dangerous and cause heart problems. So you want proper nutrition because that provides energy for your body, and also it provides building blocks for growth and development. So so food provides energy or fuel, and remember, every cell requires a constant supply of energy in the form of ATP. So it's the job of food to provide the chemical energy in the form of bonds that are broken to actually then make ATP. And that is what we learned in chapter 4 with cellular respiration. In addition to that, food provides these building materials, things like amino acids and glucose and fatty acids that are needed for the body structures, right? And there's essential nutrients. Okay, essential nutrients are those that cannot be produced by the body itself. So the potential energy in food is held in the bonds, right? In chemical bonds, in molecules like glucose, but also proteins and also fatty acids. So as far as nutrition goes, the USDA dietary guidelines are meant to remind us to make sort of healthy food choices. And so this is kind of the myplate.gov, which is supposed to give you kind of an idea of, like, if you were to fill your plate with different types of foods, fruits, grains, vegetables, proteins, and dairy, sort of what type of ratio would you have. And you can see from this that what they're suggesting is about half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, and then less than a quarter should be protein, and just a little over a quarter should be grains. And I'm not sure exactly how much dairy kind of goes into that, but the one thing I certainly can say for me is that I'm not sure, like at dinner, that half my plate is filled with fruits and vegetables. But that really is the recommended guidelines, because there's a lot of evidence that suggests that more fruits and vegetables really help extend your life, help prevent things like cancer, and so healthy food is definitely a good idea. And other recommendations: try to avoid sodium. That is hard to do in an American diet, but it does increase your risk for high blood pressure. drink lots of water, um, eat high-fat foods only occasionally, limit empty calories. So empty calories are things um, like soda pop, okay, like Coke or 7-Up or whatever we drink these days that, it's just a bunch of sugar and chemicals, right? So it doesn't really provide it does provide calories, but it doesn't provide really good building blocks, things like, amino acids and other building blocks that are needed. And then the last thing that's hard for me, but I'm trying to do better at, is be physically active. Once again, a lot of data suggests that, even just walking daily can make a huge impact on your overall health. So here it talks about 4 categories of essential nutrients. So remember, essential nutrients are nutrients that the body cannot make for itself. So there are minerals. Okay, they are inorganic chemical elements. Vitamins. Vitamins are organic carbon-containing nutrients that are required in your diet, but only in very small amounts, but still very, very important. Essential fatty acids. So remember, fatty acids are help to make up lipids, and they're required to build several important lipid-based molecules like plasma membranes and other materials. And then essential amino acids. So there are some amino acids the body cannot make for itself, and they are needed to build proteins. So here's some trivia, more human body trivia for you. True or false? You cannot digest food if you are turned upside down. True or false? Most of your food is digested in your stomach. And the third, true or false, the salivary glands in the mouth produce approximately 1.2 liters of saliva a day. 1.2 liters. Ooh, that's kind of a little bit gross to think about, but okay. Well, the first 2 are false. Because of peristalsis, you can actually digest food even if you're turned upside down. And most of the food is digested in your small intestine, not your stomach. It begins in the stomach, but it finishes up in the small intestine. And yes, I guess it's really true that salivary glands in the mouth produce 1.2 liters. Think about, like a 2-liter bottle of pop, right? 1.2 would be, a little over half of that, that amount of saliva. Oof, that's true. All right, let's talk a little bit about some illnesses that are caused by infection or malfunction of the digestive system. So common ailments, one is acid reflux. I know a lot of people who have challenges with acid reflux, where basically food and the stomach acid kind of goes in the wrong direction, right? Goes up your esophagus and then sometimes can get up even into your mouth, and you can have heartburn from that. And there are some medications for that, and some other things like not eating right before you go to bed. I mean, there are some things that you can do, but it can, for certain people, it can be a big problem. Gallstones, those sometimes have to be removed. Basically you have to remove the gallbladder. Constipation. A lot of people have something called irritable bowel syndrome, where it's either, and they don't really understand what causes it, but it can either result in constipation or diarrhea, or some people have a little bit of both, which can be really it can be sort of difficult with living life. Appendicitis, where your appendix is kind of serve a little extension from your large intestine, and that can sometimes get infected, and then it is removed. Cholera is a very serious disease caused by the bacteria Vibrio cholerae, and that's what you see here, and it makes a toxin that causes severe diarrhea, really severe diarrhea, and it's especially dangerous for babies and young children. So in a lot of third world countries, this can be a very big problem. There's also something called inflammatory bowel disease. And there, you may have heard about ulcers. Now, the thing about ulcers is it's kind of a break in the lining of the stomach. For a long time, doctors thought it was just due to stress, but I'm not sure, it's been a while now, but it's now known that most ulcers are caused by a bacterial infection by a bacterium called Helicobacter pylori. And that results, in sort of this agitation and tearing of sort of the lining of the stomach that can cause an ulcer. So that can be treated with medication, sometimes antibiotics also. Improper diets can also cause significant health problems. So obesity, you probably know sort of the American diet is not kind to us as far as being overweight, and a number of a number of people are overweight in America, and that has repercussions in that it contributes to type 2 diabetes. It increases your risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. Also, malnutrition is caused by a diet that lacks sufficient calories or essential nutrients. And that, that can occur in third world countries, but it can occur in the United States as well. And then there are eating disorders like anorexia nervosa or bulimia that can cause nutrient deficiencies and sometimes even death.